Hi class, my name is Olivia Mail and today I will be doing my Think Aloud, Read Aloud presentation on Are You Grumpy, Santa? The author is Greg Spiridelis and the illustrator is Evan Spiridelis. The suggested grade for this book is first grade, but can definitely be enjoyed by older grades. I could not find the Lexile or the DRA range of this book, but the age range is around 5 to 8, and again, it can definitely be enjoyed by older students, as my family and I still sometimes read this book. It's one of our favorites. I chose this book because it has a phonological awareness skill, rhyming, in it. I also chose this book because it provides opportunities to ask a variety of questions, and it is very appealing to young readers. The genre of this book is narrative, so it does tell a story. I will now share with you my brief synopsis of the book so that you guys can get the gist of what it's about. Today we are going to read about how sometimes even the merriest, most cheerful guy on the planet wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, particularly on that fateful Christmas Eve. First, the elves shrink his suit, then he is chased by a poodle. Next, he gets stuck in a chimney and then slips on a noodle. Will Santa ever find a way to make the Grumpies disappear? My Common Core state standards are obviously for first grade. So my first one states, retell the stories, including key details, and demonstrate understanding of their central message or lesson. My second one is identify words and phrases in stories or poems that suggest feelings or appeal to the senses. I will now share with you my crowd strategy planning sheet. So for my completion, I will do 2 sentences of the fill in the blanks. My first sentence will be, but the dryer shrank his suit, so they made a little switch and replaced it with a woolly one that made him blank, and blank will be scratch and itch. My second one is, in Italy, he slipped upon a rigatoni blank noodle. My recall questions are, because the reindeer were still frozen, what did they almost crash into? My second one is, why are Santa's grumpies suddenly gone? My open-ended questions are, tell me about a time you stubbed your toe on something, and how did you feel when this happened? My second one is, how do you think Santa is feeling now based on the picture? My WH questions, my first one is, why does Santa look so upset in the picture? And my second one is, what was Santa nearly trampled by? And finally, my distancing question, I have, tell me about a time you felt grumpy, and what did you do to get ungrumpified? So there's that. I chose 3 key vocabulary words for this book. Grumpy, to be unhappy. Defrosted, to free from ice and make warm. And despair, to give up. So now I will begin reading it for you. Hello, first graders. Today we will be reading a story called Are You Grumpy, Santa? The author is Greg Spiridelis, and then the illustrator is Evan Spiridelis. Before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit of what it's about. Sometimes, even the merriest, most cheerful guy on the planet wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, particularly on that fateful Christmas Eve. First, the elves shrink his suit, then he is chased by a poodle. Next, he gets stuck in a chimney and then slips on a noodle. Will Santa ever find a way to make the grumpies disappear? Let's read and find out. So before we begin, I want to go over 3 key vocabulary words that we will hear in this book. The first one is grumpy. Say the word. Grumpy. Grumpy means to be unhappy. The second word is defrosted. Say the word. Defrosted. Defrosted means to free from ice and make warm. The third word is despair. Say the word. Despair, to give up. We all know Santa's jolly, but there's something else worth knowing. There are times when even Santa doesn't feel like ho-ho-hoing. If you've never heard this story, you might be quite surprised. It's about a grumpy Santa who became ungrumpified. So there's our first key word, grumpy. What's the word? Grumpy. Grumpy means to be unhappy. One night, while Santa slept, dreams of Christmas in his head, a giant snore from Mrs. Claus blew him out of bed. He rolled across the bedroom floor, ouchie, ouchie, ow, then tripped over a bowling ball and stubbed his little toe. Tell me about a time you stubbed your toe. How did that make you feel? Students will think and share about maybe how it made them upset. Maybe it made them cry. Maybe it made them angry or grumpy in this case. He was tired and his toe hurt, but he hopped into the tub. My big round jelly belly sure could use a soapy scrub. But when he turned the shower knob, this water's freezing. He jumped out of the bathtub, now sniffling and sneezing. The elves defrosted Santa by the edge of the small fire and tried to warm his favorite suit inside of the dryer. There's our second key vocabulary word, defrosted. What's the word? Defrosted means to free from ice and make warm. But the dryer shrank his suit, so they made a little switch and replaced it with a woolly one that made him scratch and itch. But the dryer shrank his suit, so they made a little switch and replaced it with a woolly one that made him scratch and itch. At breakfast, things got worse. There must have been some mistake. What happened to my waffles, pancakes, sausage, eggs, and steak? I want you on a diet. You're so handsome when you're thin. A grumpy Santa mumbled, today I just can't win. Why does Santa look so upset in this picture? Students will hopefully answer with, maybe it's because Mrs. Claus wants him on a diet. Maybe they bring up his itchy suit again. Maybe it's because he doesn't have the breakfast that he usually gets. There could be multiple answers to this question. Santa grabbed his gifts and headed out the door, but his fleet of flying reindeer weren't where they were before. When he finally found them, he shouted out, "Oh no!" His reindeer had been buried, hoof to antler, in the snow. The reindeer were still frozen. They flew out of control. They almost crashed the speeding sleigh into the striped North Pole. "Hold steady," Santa yelled as he unfolded his map. Then a giant gust of wind blew up and stole poor Santa's cap. Because the reindeer were so frozen, what did they almost crash into? Students should answer with the striped North Pole. At the first house on his list, Santa had no change of luck. He jumped into the chimney and his belly got him stuck. He wiggled side to side, then gave a mighty push. He fell into the fireplace and sprained his chubby tush. In Paris, he was chased by a tiny growling poodle. In Italy, he slipped upon a rigatoni noodle. In Italy, he slipped upon a rigatoni noodle. He was nearly trampled by a bull in beautiful Pamplona. He bumped into a Christmas tree in Phoenix, Arizona. What was Santa nearly trampled by? A bull. At the last house on his list, near the point of full despair, he tripped over a toy train and flew up in the air. There's our last key vocabulary word, despair. What's the word? Despair means to give up. He grabbed the chandelier, then heard the ceiling crack. Poor old Santa tumbled down and landed on his back. I'm tired, my toe hurts, I'm hungry and I'm freezing. My wool suit is so itchy, I'm sniffling and I'm sneezing. My head has got a bump, my tush is wrapped in gauze. I can't take this anymore. I'm a grumpy Santa Claus. Then suddenly he saw it next to the Christmas tree. He walked over to inspect it, belly grumbling heavily. It was a card for Santa. Painted on it was a wreath, and when he picked it up, he found some cookies underneath. How do you think Santa is feeling now based on his face in the picture? There could be multiple answers to this question. Santa might be feeling happy. He might be feeling relieved that he can get some food. He might be feeling ready to be done. There could be a lot of answers for this one as well. As he read the note inside, his heart did nearly pause. We made you all these cookies 'cause we love you, Santa Claus. Santa smiled and took a bite. The lesson was quite clear. When people do nice things for you, the grumpies disappear. Why are Santa's grumpies suddenly gone? Students could say that he finally got some cookies. They could say that someone left a note that said, I love you, Santa Claus. So multiple answers for this one. Santa flew into the night, the winter moon aglow. He felt so good, he shouted out a hearty ho, ho, ho. So remember, make them chocolate, silky smooth, or extra lumpy. Just be sure to leave some cookies in case Santa's feeling grumpy. So that concludes our story. Before we end, I do want to ask you a question. Tell me about a time that you felt grumpy, and what did you do to get ungrumpified? How did you feel happy again? Yeah. That concludes my Think Aloud, Read Aloud presentation. Thank you for listening.